teaching for Lamrim Buddhist Centre Wales, but he's teaching this very, extensive, deep presentation of the Lamrim by Conqueror, the great treatise, So I'm sure that's a bit hard unless you're for some people. So mine's a bit of a simpler and shorter presentation, I hope. But it's the same path, yeah. Me and him, the great treatise of the stage of the path to enlightenment, and this 37 practices of Conqueror style by Togme Zangpo. We're talking about the same path, really. This is the path of a Buddha Bodhisattva, a path of a Conqueror child. Nobody says it's easy, but very rewarding and hugely beneficial. But yeah, it's a great project. And I compare it to being, if you're really serious about being a bodhisattva, I compare it to being like an astronaut, who's blasting away from the Earth's gravity. So to do that, you need a huge spaceship, yeah? You need a lot of energy, a lot of fuel, and you need a lot of skill and expertise. So it takes a great kind of, endeavor. So it's not just enough to have a heavy goods vehicle driver's license to be able to, to be allowed to drive a spaceship. So, yeah, it's a great project. Never mind, we may not be Congress children, we may not be spiritual sons or daughters of the Buddha in that definite sense, that we are definitely bound for enlightenment at this stage. Still, we can say we're Dharma babies or something, so it's like there's still plenty of inspiration we can get from this poem. Yeah, but we are looking for proper solutions, powerful solutions. We're not just looking for the things that distract us away from the uncomfortable facts of life and death, We are looking for strong solutions. So yeah, we're trying to be a bit profound. So I'm just going to read the verses we might get through today. I'm going to begin at the beginning and then just stop where I think I'd like to get to this time, which is after the end of verse 11. Please read with me if you like. We can't really hear each other reading together, but the verses are meant to be read or chanted, read aloud, I think. And just remember in verse 2, the introduction verse 2, the introduction verse 2, there was a change, the last minute change. So that might be a little bit different. The last two lines might be slightly different from what you've got if you just downloaded the thing from my website, a couple of weeks ago or something. Who see all dharmas neither come nor go, yet solely strive on being's behalf. To you, the best of lamas and Lord Chenre Zig, I ever bow with 3 doors with respect. The perfect Buddha's source of help and joy spring from the sacred dharma they fulfilled. Since that on knowing its practices depends, I'll show a Conqueror children's practices. Rare ship of freedom fortunes this time found, save self and others from samsara's sea. So day and night, no letting up, here think and meditate. So does a Conqueror's child. Attachment sways like water towards kin. Aggression burns like fire towards foes. Dark dullness blanks out what to do and not. Abandon home, so does a Conqueror's child. Bad objects shunned, afflictions lessened down. With no distractions, virtues freely grow. Mind clarified, then Dharma knowledge comes. Keep solitude, so does a Conqueror's child. Dear friends and kin who've long been close will part. Wealth got with effort will be left aside. The guest mind from the guest house body goes. Renounce this lie, so does a Conqueror's child. If friendly with them your 3 poisons wax, and hearing, thinking, meditation wane, love and compassion they will finish off. Give up bad friends, so does a Conqueror's child. Depending on them faults come to an end, while qualities grow like a swelling moon. Hold dear a noble spiritual friend, more than your body dear, so does a Conqueror's child. What worldly god can save? Samsara's jail shuts them in two. So go for refuge to a refuge which is never fallible, the triple gem. So does a conqueror's child. The so harsh sufferings of the evil realms, the sage said, are the fruits of sinful deeds. Though life may be the cost then, at all times, shun sinful deeds. So does a conqueror's child. The three worlds' pleasures are a dewdrop on a grass blade tip. They're in a moment gone. Seek liberation's never-changing state, most excellent. So does a conqueror's child. When mothers who forever shown you love are suffering then, what use your own content? To free all boundless beings, therefore, arouse awakening mind. So does a conqueror's child. From wanting your delight or suffering comes. From wishing others benefit, there's born full Buddhahood. So truly, swap your joy for others' pain. So does a conqueror's child. So that'll do for the time being. Yeah, so just to remember what we talked about last week, very, very briefly. There's, you know, how free and fortunate, the freedom fortunes of this life. You know, what a magnificent opportunity we have. How soon it will be taken away, you know. But $1 billion is just brass compared to the rare gold of this opportunity we have of being, you know, making progress with this sort of spark of intelligence that we have in this life. And then, how do we make progress? Well, we have to examine our minds. Yeah? He says, leave home, you know, abandon home. So maybe that means, you know, abandon the afflictions, the addictive minds that we're so used to, desire or attachment, and then anger, and then, you know, the sort of, you know, misunderstanding of dullness. So we are very confused about what's going to help us in life and what's going to harm us. And then, you know, if we do remove ourselves from bad influences, you know, find a more conducive, peaceful environment, and then maybe we can make progress as beginners. That's very helpful. But how soon this life is over, yeah? How soon we will part from our friends and from our wealth, even from our own bodies. So that's true on the personal level, and it's true on the sort of, you know, social level now, the global level of with climate disaster coming around the corner. So there is no time to waste. So whether we consider future lives or not, you know, whether we really sort of focused in on the Buddha's, you know, teaching for liberation and Buddhahood, you know, but at least, you know, we should do what Socrates says, you know thyself. So don't just be like a narrow-minded person who thinks just the room he's living in is the whole world, you know. We've got to open the windows, look outside. We've got to be a bit ambitious. We've got to really, what is our potential as a human being? What is our potential with this mind we've got? So can we go to the limits of our potential? So then verse number 5, that brings us up to where we got to last week, really. So verse number 5 was about bad friends. Verse number 5 then, if friendly with them your three poisons wax, and hearing, thinking, meditation way, love and compassion they will finish off. Give up bad friends, so does a conqueror's child. So bad friends, you know, they may not be bad people, but, you know, they just pull you in the wrong way. I mean, I had a little anecdote about smoking last week, didn't I? About, you know, how I was able to give up smoking because going to live or stay for a while in a Dharma center, you know, really was that conducive environment where a beginner could, you know, start to, you know, reduce his kind of afflicted minds to the point where he might stop smoking. But how did I begin smoking? Well, it was just because of my school friends, and they weren't bad people, but, you know, why did I start smoking? Just because they did. So there's absolutely nothing more to it than that. You know, I wasn't going to get any benefit out of it, but just because they did, I wanted to. I mean, I didn't just sort of just do it immediately that they just because they were, but in the end, it was their just because they were doing it. So any of those afflictions like attachment and anger and dullness, ignorance, they're the gang that will drag you down. So it may not be. You can think of your friends who are actually human beings, but also if you're friends with those delusions, attachment, anger, and ignorance, the three poisons, they will drag you down. So don't be friends with them. Find better friends. So a beginner is very easily influenced. Instead, verse number 6. Depending on them, faults come to an end, while qualities grow like the swelling moon. Hold dear a noble spiritual friend, more than your body dear, so does a conqueror's child. So, if you want to make progress in this life, then do seek out those who do have good qualities. I mean, we don't have to think just of the sort of expert spiritual friend, but even those, people who are kind and gentle, those people who are, exceptionally peaceful with people and interested in others, not just in their own, in their own benefit. So those are the kind of people we like. Those are the kind of people we relax with and feel, feel we can just be ourselves with. So those people are kind of are teaching us something just by their kind behavior, and we can ask ourselves, how can I be like that? Could I be the same as them? So not just to enjoy their company, but can I emulate them? Can I be like that? Of course, it's best of all, to be the spiritual friend who's like a fully qualified master who will introduce you to the Dharma and so forth. Yeah, so that's what the verse is really recommending. That and Tsongkhapa does that too in the beginning of Islam Ren. The personal attention of a master, the personal attention of a spiritual friend, lama, guru in different languages. Yeah, that's something. If we have, then we're very lucky, and we should keep seeking for such a person, because they will benefit us greatly. So verse number 7. What worldly god can save? Samsara's jail shuts them in two. So go for refuge to a refuge which is never fallible. The triple gem. So does a conqueror's child. So here we are talking about, what are our methods then, to overcome the problems of this world. What are the methods to really make use of this life and really kind of have some sort of antidote to the sufferings that are around us. So when the world gets on top of us, we need a refuge, right? And preferably we go for a refuge before the world gets on top of us, as a preparation. When things do get bad, then we have some sort of somewhere to go, something to fall back on. Plan A. Yeah, and when we do step back and see all the problems in the world, and all the pains going on in the lives of other people, if not ourselves at the moment, all other creatures, then we do need a respite, don't we? We do need guidance, because to be serious, the problems of the world are massive. I'm not saying they're endless. I'm saying we can end them. We can do something about them. But if you just look at them and look them full in the face, then it's there's a lot to think about. A lot of things we need refuge from. Let's say refuge from the problems of the world and the kind of the sort of despair we sometimes might have just looking at it. But also refuge means, something to aim at, something we can get to, something that will really lead us on, something that is we can have a sort of confidence and faith in, so that a refuge it takes us somewhere. It doesn't just save us from the sufferings, but it leads us in a very positive direction. And And, you know, you might find Tibetans and Indians, there's sort of an inclination to take refuge in, it says, worldly gods, you know, so local spirits, nagas, you know, mountain gods and so forth. These are kind of, you know, these beliefs are sort of common in the Himalayan area. I mean, I've never been to Tibet, but, you know, I've met plenty of Tibetans, and I've been up in the villages in the Himalayas in India, which are pretty similar to, you know, Tibetan villages. But I think, you know, in village life in other places in India too, you do find that the local spirits, the local gods are relied on. And sometimes the village has a medium, you know, there's somebody who can channel the deity, so that they have a spokesman, you know, who goes into a trance, and then the villagers ask questions and the spirit answers, you know. Of course, some of these people claim that these spirits are, you know, high bodhisattvas are helping their village, you know. So I sometimes wonder about the claims that are made, but I'm not judging. But I even saw there was one guy who came to see me when I was in retreat in my little mountain place, and he was a white guy, and he was a Westerner. He wasn't, I think, he was Spanish. And he was a medium for one of these local spirits, you know, in the village that he was living in near Manali, you know. I don't know if you know Himachal Pradesh. And it's a great place for, you know, marijuana trading, you know, it's a great tourist resort, but also a place where a bit of marijuana production goes on very secretly. Anyway, he wasn't anything to do with that, but, you know, there's a lot of Westerners living in that area anyway, sort of hanging out. But he was a medium for one of these spirits, he was saying, and that was his reputation. He'd come to see me, he's sort of having these visions or something like, and I think it sounded like he was realizing emptiness, but he didn't know what to do about it. He was so like, he's not a person who understood Buddhist teachings. And anyway, you know, something like an experience of emptiness would be very kind of, you know, sort of, might make you very nervous before you understand what's going on. And I've never got to that stage myself, but anyway, just to mention about these mountain spirits and gods that are kind of there, and people relying on them. But the problem is, if they've still got the afflictions that we've got, you know, a worldly refuge, I mean, means they're still tangled up in the three poisons of attachment, anger, and ignorance, you see. So there's no point in so much point in going for refuge to them. They may help in certain ways, you know, they may help, they may not be really negative in their approach. They may try to be helped, but the help's going to be limited by what they don't know. So choose a refuge that's clear of those tangles of the three poisonous minds, and that's you know, 3 jewels, of course, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So I'm not saying all the members of the Sangha are clear of the tangles of those 3 poisonous minds. You know, the Sangha they've realized emptiness directly, you know, they have very exalted realizations, but okay, they're not necessarily completely out of samsara, but, you know, they know the way there. They're definitely on the way out of samsara. They know they've got the antidote, you know, so they can really show us something. So that's the kind of refuge we want, you know. Example, His Holiness, from amongst all the Dalai Lamas that we've got, how many of the 14 Dalai Lamas, isn't he really outstanding? You know, even amongst the Dalai Lamas, he's outstanding. Is he not? You know, so we're very well placed here. We're very fortunate. We've got a refuge. You know, even a living person refuge, not just some sort of refuge that you read, that you hear about in the teachings, that you have to visualize in your own kind of, you know, imagination, that the Buddha's blessing us. But we've got, you know, an actual living being who's, you know, so seemingly kind of you know, well advanced, you know, that we can, so there's a living being as a refuge. So, you know, we just have to think how fortunate we are in this world. I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah, so that's right, going for refuge. Number 8, why are we going for refuge then? Or what are the stages of thinking after we've gone for refuge? You know, whether we are going to talk about the evil realms, you know, the hell realms, and where we could go after this life is over, you know, like a traditional Buddhist, like a full-on Buddhist, you know, remembering previous and future lives. or we just, looking around in this world as it is, as it presents itself to our eyes, then, the same message really applies if we can, if we can sort of adapt it to the level that we're at. So in verse number 8, the so harsh sufferings of the evil realms, the sage said, are the fruits of sinful deeds. Though life may be the cost, then at all times shun sinful deeds. So does a conqueror's child. Yeah, so where is all this suffering coming from then? Where are all these? Where is the sort of terrible messes we're going to get into in life? Accidents, illness, death, and kind of conflict, and so much that we could talk about here. Where's it all coming from? Fruits of karma. So even if we can't, really kind of take, future lives on board at this stage, still, you can think about karma in the sense that, whatever you've done in this life, whatever experience is thrown into your face in this life is exactly coming out of, what you've put out to others. So never mind the details of it, karma can be quite complicated. But if you can sort of take that on board, then isn't it going to be helpful? That's the Buddha's teaching of dependent arising. So everything that happens is just the outcome of the cause and conditions that produce it. Yeah. So if you've got some sort of gross sort of suffering that's thrown into your face in this life, then it's just the outcome of the cause and conditions. So it wouldn't have come about unless all these causes and conditions have produced it. So what's the point about mourning and grieving and moaning? So why me? It's all so terrible, and all these other kind of sort of fruitless kind of self-worrying reactions you can have to what happens to you, in spite of all that. If you can just accept that whatever's happened to me is just the outcome of the causes and conditions that produced it, and in the end we're just saying that's my karma. Lama Yeshe in the FBMT Lama Yeshe, he's passed away now, of course. He when he was thrown out of Tibet, he ran away from Tibet. When the Dalai Lama left, the Chinese invaded, so he is a refugee in India, and the Indians put the Tibetans like him, the monks, in this prison camp, actually, like the Boxador. It was for the British, it was a prison camp where they put the freedom fighters, where they put those who were causing trouble for the British, trying to rule India, and all these people listening to Gandhi's protests and fighting against the British. If they were really troublesome, they put them in this Boxador concentration camp. But the Indians, when the Tibetans arrived, they said, well, we need to put them somewhere, so let's put them here, because there are all these buildings just in the jungle not being used. So they put them there, but it's a very unhealthy place. And, all the amount of food that I'm sure the Indian government sort of provided for the refugees didn't get through because, the contractors who were supposed to provide all these things for the refugees were not necessarily free of corruption and squeaky clean and honest, So these refugees got terrible food, and there's lots of diseases like TB and kind of malaria, things that the Tibetans had hardly experienced before, and so they were dying in numbers, and they're really shattered because they'd lost all their families, their mothers and brothers or sisters were already dead in Tibet, didn't know where they were. Everybody split up, no contact, didn't know if their friends were alive or dead. All the possessions, all the land, all the wealth, or whatever they had, and all this sort of, the culture, they were just completely deprived and stuck in this prison camp in the sort of this unwholesome, unhealthy type of jungle. And so there's the people just dying of despair, That's what Lama Yeshe says when he talks about it. But Lama Yeshe said, what did I think? Well, I just think, well, it's my karma. And he said that just that thought alone was helpful to him. He said, it's my karma. Whatever I'm experiencing now, I've created the cause and conditions to experience it. But that's a type of acceptance which can lead to it's kind of an antidote to some of the the grief and the kind of shock and the despair you might feel in this situation like that. You know what I mean? So that's what this is saying in this verse, isn't it? Yeah. And what we're talking about when we talk about karma, then the karma that leads you into heavy, nasty experiences is the karma of doing harm to others. making others feel, you know, they're at the end of the nasty end of the stick, you know, making others suffer for your benefit. So those are the sinful acts, the negative actions he's talking about, actions harming others. But give those up, you know, then you stand a chance, you know, of what ripens up for you in the future is, you know, something, you know, a bit more affirmative, a bit more, you know, positive, a bit more hopeful than just, you know, the suffering that you put onto others. You do good virtue, good virtuous actions then. So that's what we're talking about. But still, that's not the end of the story. So verse number 9, the 3 world's pleasures are a dewdrop on a grass blade tip, they're in a moment gone. Seek liberation's never-changing state, most excellent. So does a conqueror's child. Yeah, so what if we were out of this suffering altogether then? Yeah, it's not like, oh, we're still in cyclic existence, but we have sort of good ripening effects, like we had good rebirths, human rebirths, or, you know, we managed to get good food on our plate when we're hungry, you know, the reasonable kind of, you know, comforts of cyclic existence. What if we had no suffering at all? You know, we didn't have to be born or die, you know. Wherever we're born in cyclic existence, you know, we might be born as a king or an emperor, or as a kind of, you know, in some sort of exalted realm, divine realm or something. But still, you're in the wheel of birth and death. You're still going round like that, you know, from birth to death and back again. So, you know, you're never going to escape from suffering just while you're in samsara. So what about if you're completely free from samsara? So what about that, you know? So this is this verse is thinking like that. Yeah? Whatever pleasures pleasures there are in this world just fade away. You know, as soon as you grasp them, you kind of lose them just by in the very act of grasping at them. Oh, you know, attachment to them just sort of spoils them. You know, the pleasures of this world are completely, you know, undependable. So what if we were completely free? How to envisage that? Surpassing state of peace, nirvana. Yeah, well, is that possible? So we have to explore that. You know? Complete freedom from suffering. So at least we try and imagine that. You know? How would that have to be? I think we couldn't have any more aggregates like this. You know, the kind of, you know, burdensome aggregates, they call them. You know, the aggregates that are the burden to you. You know, if you're born with a sparrow's aggregates, a sparrow's mind and body, then you think like a sparrow. All you can do is do what sparrows do, which is like, you know, find a mate, build a nest, you know, courtship, babies, and then you're rushing around like trying to find food for your babies. So you're picking up worms, killing other creatures for the sake of your babies. And then, you know, the whole trip of like, you know, that samsaric busyness is just going to go on and on and on, this rushing river of samsaric life. What if all that was dissolved, you know, completely placated, completely free of all that, going beyond self even? So what does that mean? Well, going at least beyond the wrong notions of self. Going beyond, you know, duality. That's you know, I haven't got time to talk about it now, but that's plenty to say there, you know. Going beyond freedom, you know, peace. Why shouldn't it be possible for us? Why is it something that's, you know, oh, I can never imagine that, you know, I'm just, you know, going to think about this life and this life alone because, you know, all that is just too, kind of too far off for me. Well, not necessarily. We shouldn't think quite so. You know, that's just staying in the confines of your little room, isn't it? Without really going outside and enjoying the sunshine, seeing what's out there beyond, you know, your sort of present limitations. However, that's liberation, nirvana, yeah. So peace, complete peace, at least. But you know, the next verse is where I'm going to. Well, the next 2 verses. Number 10. When mothers who forever shown you love are suffering, then what use your own content to free your boundless beings. Therefore, arouse awakening mind. So does a conqueror's child. So a bodhisattva is not going for that individual liberation. Bodhisattva is not going for that complete peace, where everything is just, you just so sweet and kind of all your problems have dropped away, and there you are, just kind of in bliss of your own sort of solitude. No, the Bodhisattva is going for how can I remain in? How could I remain in a state of peace? How could I remain in a state of nirvana when all my fellow creatures? He says mothers there, but it means all other fellow creatures in this world. They're still suffering. What about all them? They're still far from wisdom. They're still far from peace. They're just far from having a true refuge. So they are, still swept along by their afflictions and kind of lost in the fog of their ignorance. And they keep meeting up with disappointment, deprivation and desolation and death. So what about all them? So I can't leave them behind. So I'm not going to head for personal solitary peace, but I'm going for Buddhahood, where one has great knowledge, great compassion, great ability to reach out and guide many other sentient beings. So that's what the Bodhisattva is going for. He's putting aside this opportunity to go to a peace which might be easy to achieve, but it's not satisfactory, because how can you enjoy your own peace when everybody else is still in turmoil? So that's the Bodhisattva's great determination. So I'm just going to read one more verse now, then we'll stop and do a bit of meditation. From wanting your delight, all suffering comes. From wishing others benefit, there's born full Buddhahood. So truly swap your joy for others' pain. So does a Conqueror's child. So that's the way to Buddhahood then, is compassion in action. This is compassion in action. So you're not worrying so much about your suffering, but you're trying to benefit of others, relieve them from their suffering. So that's where you place your hopes. That's where you that's where you kind of engage your energy. Of course, we need emptiness. We need the wisdom realizing emptiness in meditation, but in action, it's compassion. It's working for the benefit of others. And you see what the verse says. You see, the Buddhas have gone to glory. The Buddhas have gone to bliss. The Buddhas have gone to the full evolution of their potential, by attending to the welfare of others. Whereas we, or a person like me anyway, lay about like me, I'm still stuck in cyclic existence, because all I've been doing is putting self first and not really caring about others. So that's the difference. The Buddhas have gone to bliss by working for the benefit of others, but somebody who's just kind of thinks is better off just looking for his own advantage and not caring about others, they're the ones who stay in cyclic existence. So which is preferable? So working for the benefit of others obviously is going to help others if you do it skillfully, but it's the best option for you too. So that's the message of this week from the verses. So now we can do a bit of meditation if that's agreeable, and if we have time at the end, we can have any questions you've got. But that's enough talking from me from the in just lecture type of style. But now we can have a bit of meditation and a bit more of a inward turn your thoughts inward a little bit, and try and put some of this talk about compassion, love and compassion into an internal kind of dialogue you can have. Sort of, it's still reflection, it's still thinking, but it's that kind of meditation. You've got to contemplate, but it's the inward turn now. So I suggest we start off by just a little bit of breathing meditation, but maybe I should, introduce the meditation a bit. So it's taking and giving this time, yeah. So we have we looked last week at the kindness of others, tried to get a really good scope of that, how sentient beings are being so kind to us. And this time it's taking and giving. So that means you're taking the suffering of others imaginatively, and not literally. We can't really, obviously can't take somebody's disease from them and just give it to ourselves. It's in imagination we're doing things like that, but it's imaginative. So it's training the mind. It's not like really having practical effects, except just on our, our readiness to help people in the future. So very beneficial. But anyway, so the idea is we're taking the suffering of people, of others on us. And then what do we do with that suffering? Well, we smash it onto our self-cherishing. Self-cherishing, that means our selfishness, our self-obsession, always worrying about ourselves, and doesn't matter if what happens to others, but me, I've got to have what I need, sort of that kind of negative ego type of attitude. So get rid of that. So you use the suffering of others to like smash down on that self-cherishing in your heart, as I'll explain. And then we give out happiness to others. So, we've taken away their suffering, but then we want to give them instead all our happiness. So we take all their suffering and we give all our happiness out to them. It's that kind of meditation, you see. So this is like, the whatever it is, the love and compassion of a bodhisattva. But again, even if we're just thinking of this life alone as a kind of person who's not ready to be a bodhisattva and take on those traditional Buddhist views, it's still, as the Dalai Lama says, my religion is kindness. Yeah. So what does he mean by that? It doesn't matter what religion you have in terms of, which gods you worship, but, the point about a proper religion is it leads you in the direction of being more and more kind. Yeah? So this is what this meditation is supposed to do, whether you're call yourself a Buddhist or an atheist or whatever you are. And I'm going to read from Mathieu Ricard. He's written a book about meditation, and this is one of his suggestions. And he's obviously, to those of you who have heard of him, you probably know he's a very kind of let's say, a very well-trained Western Buddhist, a monk, a French person, I think. So what is this taking and giving then? In his words, it consists of mentally exchanging the suffering of others for our own happiness, and also in wishing that our own suffering may stand for the suffering of others. This is done through the vehicle of the breath. Perhaps we think we have enough problems already, and it's asking too much to add to our burden by taking on the suffering of others. However, what happens as a result of this practice is just the opposite. Experience shows that when we mentally take on, transform, and dissolve the suffering of others through compassion, not only does that not increase our own suffering, but it dispels it. The reason for this is that altruistic love and compassion are the most powerful antidotes there are to our own pain. So this is a situation where everybody wins. So that's the kind of, the ideal behind the meditation then. So let's take a few mindful breaths. Just following the breath in and out of the body, and that is kind of, letting the waves on the ocean of our mind, let them subside a bit, yeah. So let them just be a bit more peaceful. Let the depths of our mind, let's reach down into the depths, not just be the turbulence or the froth of the surface. So just a few relaxed, alert breaths, watching the mind, watching the breath going in and out at the nostrils. So first step, let's just think back to what we were talking about a fortnight ago. The kindness of other beings. So let's get, a perspective on our actual relationship with the other creatures, the other beings we share this universe with, at least this world. So of course there are those who have been very kind to us directly, deliberately, our parents, teachers, and doctors, maybe nurses, when we've needed medical attention. We have received direct, great, deliberate kindness from others. We're very grateful for that, aren't we? How would we be balanced, reasonably healthy people without all that? But then we expanded a lot further than that. So what about all those creatures who, their lives have gone to ruin in order for us to have our comforts? I'm thinking now of, like the rainforest, the primeval forest that gets chopped down because human beings need wood, and many things human beings don't actually need, but they're just useful and comfortable. Like, we read about rainforests being chopped down so that they can have plantations for palm oil. Do we really need palm oil? No, but it's just an ingredient in biscuits or cakes or something, processed foods. So, how many creatures have given up their lives or had their homes completely destroyed, for our welfare, our comfort, whether it's food or shelter, clothing. They didn't have any choice, but, what their suffering, what they had to give up greatly benefited us in terms of resources that we can take advantage of. So there's numberless beings there, who've, their deprivation has been our acquisition, our, our comfort. And then there's just the web of life, that all the creatures that all the different species that are living together on this planet, and how in between them all, a kind of a flourishing takes place that we can inhabit. But without, it would just be desolation. It'd be impossible to live. And my example of that is just the earthworm, who's eating up dead leaves of autumn, turning them into what looks like soil. So what a contribution. They're not giving up their lives for us, but what they're doing is so essential for our agriculture, for the fertility of the earth that we take advantage of. So that's what I mean with this network, this web of life, this interaction between so many species. I mean, they're not deliberately trying to help us. They're not deliberately being kind to us, but it amounts to kindness in the sense that we derive benefit from their efforts. So the kindness of, innumerable beings is just, you should really reflect on that. So next step then, so we go from there to thinking of the, of sending out happiness to all these beings. All these beings have been so kind to us. All these beings have been, they must appear to us in a very pleasant light then, because, they've been so useful to us. And in return, our treatment of them may not have been very good at all. Just ruthless kind of exploitation, maybe. But we wish for them all to have happiness, yeah. They're so beneficial. And they just want happiness, just like us. They want to avoid suffering, just like us. So whether we can reach out to them or not, practically, at least we can think, how wonderful if they all had happiness. So that must be how a bodhisattva thinks, May I be a shining light of happiness for all beings. But when we look around and see what state sentient beings are in, then you can see so many beings so far from happiness. So at this point, we should think about the suffering and how terrible life can be. We don't want to be distracted from it. We want to examine it and know it. Remind ourselves. Not to make ourselves depressed, but, to deal with it. To train our minds to be able to, to reverse it. So we can think obviously about, the disaster that's coming to us through global heating. That's going to affect the whole world. Or we can think about, just our own continent of Europe. And then there's the gruesome war that started now in Ukraine, and the terrible suffering, terrible war crimes are being committed, it seems. And then just you look at one country in Europe, like UK, for instance. And I found a statistic on the internet from the meat industry. It said that in this month, the month of April, in 2019, 1,200,000 sheep were slaughtered in the slaughterhouses of the UK. That's an incredible figure. But that's what it said, 1,200,000 in 1 month. And that's just sheep. Never mind the other animals, the cows and the chickens and so forth. And then you go to your own town, your own city. What about in my city, there's two big multi-story hospitals to serve my city in Sheffield, the city in the UK. Two big multi-story hospitals serving the city and the surrounding population. So you think about that, and there's a special cancer hospital and a special children's hospital. You think about those people who are on death's door. There's people who are passing away. That all the medical treatment has not been sufficient. They're too old, or their immune system is too damaged, or something. And so they are, going through that phase of having to, confront their own death and then pass through the trauma of death itself. So these are just examples of, the suffering that we can go through. We will go through, other people and creatures around that are going through. So taking, so gather all that, draw all that suffering out of people now. So just by breathing in, you don't breathe long breaths or special breaths, just normal breaths. But in breathing in, you draw out that suffering from all the other beings, suffering like black smoke. So you draw it out. So there's a cloud of black smoke in front of you. First stage, yeah. Just as you breathe in, just breathe out, breathe in the suffering of others, yeah? But just let it form into a big black cloud in front of you. So just imaginatively, you're taking away the suffering of others. So what's the point? Well, doing this type of meditation regularly, it makes you more ready to help others. It makes you more ready to sort of, try and stop suffering when you see it. Right now, it's just a meditation, but it'll have that effect on your mind of generating stronger and stronger compassion within you. So for just now, just draw out the suffering, and it gathers in a big black cloud in front of you. All the suffering of war and all those other things I've been talking about. Next stage, we are going to take that black smoke within ourselves. And what we're going to do with it is destroy our self-cherishing mind. Self-cherishing means selfish. Not just the mind where we sensibly look after ourselves, but the mind where we only care about ourselves and other people. We don't really other creatures. They're not so important as we are. So this sort of selfishness, exaggerated self-concern. So that what leads us into negative actions and cruelty, not caring about the welfare of others. So that mind, we've got to smash it. So when we draw in the black smoke, it will come like a lightning bolt. So as you draw in the black smoke through our nostrils, it changes into sort of lightning within us, and it smashes down on this black rock of self-cherishing at our hearts. So we've just got to smash that self-cherishing apart. Yeah, so it's not all about us, this life, it's team effort. We just pursue our own self-interest. We just, ruining our prospects of, being a good person, being a pleasant person to know. We really kind of make a contribution to the welfare of the world, but we must get rid of this self-cherishing. So for a few breaths, you can, each time you breathe in the black smoke, and you smash it down onto this terrible, dark, heavy rock of self-cherishing, and you splinter it into pieces. So just try a few breaths to achieve that. So really feel you've got rid of your self-cherishing. Yeah. So when other people come at me with their problems or their, you know, confusion and drag me into it, and I just, I'm going to say, well, you're at least as important as me, your problems, or listen to them. Or if you're really being skillful, you'll say, well, you know, the happiness of others comes before the happiness of myself. Not in some kind of unskillful, silly way, but, that is the way to happiness, to be able to benefit others. That's fulfilling. Skillful, you need to know. It's not just doing everything that anybody asks you to do just because even if they're foolish things. No. It's skillful, but self-cherishing is just getting in the way of any sort of skillful, creative, patient action. Just that's all completely being cleansed away. You're completely open-minded now. And the last stage of this sequence is you go back to wishing for the benefit of others. So you're giving out the happiness. You've taken their sufferings away. So you're giving away your happiness now. All my happiness I give to others. All the um, virtues or benefits or comforts I've got in this life. Really giving them away. And in doing so, other beings are. You imagine other beings being completely satisfied. If they're hungry, they get food. If they're poor, they get wealth. If they are lonely, they get companionship. If they are confused, they get wisdom. If they're cold, they get a nice warm room or blankets. If they're hot, they get refreshing drinks and everything that somebody might need. So happily give it away to all beings. So now we can just bring the meditation to a conclusion by dedicating all the virtuous or positive energy that we've generated towards, the welfare of others. And we can say to ourselves, this is a mind training. This 37 practices of the Bodhisattva verses, they are in the mind training tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, Lojong. I'm training my mind, so may the outcome be, more sympathy, more goodwill, more patience, more efforts, to show kindness to others. And when the time comes, to respond positively, to situations where we find creatures are in trouble, suffering. So directing our positive energy in that direction. So that's about it for tonight in terms of what I have to say. But if you have any questions, then we've got a couple of minutes. If anybody has a question. Well, you're all very quiet and peaceful. Very good, very good.
I think, Geshe, may I ask a question?
Is that Branwyn, is it?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes,
it is. It is Branwyn. Hi. I'm just thinking, with the giving and taking, is it a good idea to start with smaller problems, like somebody who's got toothache, and work our way up to wars that we see on television or people whose islands are disappearing? Or am I misunderstanding?
Well, you do it with there's actually a great number of different ways of doing it. So I didn't have time to go into every possibility. I'm sort of following a guidelines by Lama Zopa, but they say start off with your own sufferings. Well, the sufferings of the ones you love, and you can just restrict it to that. If you've got, like when my parents were passing away, I used to do a bit of giving and taking at their bedside. There's nothing I could do in the way of medical assistance, so they got all the help they were going to get, and it wasn't enough. They were dying, but there's nothing else you can do. You could do taking and giving. So, do it at the level that is comfortable for you. And as I say, you can do it with your own suffering. So if you've got the toothache, or you've got suffers a pain somewhere, instead of smashing the self-cherishing in your heart, you can imagine all that kind of the black smoke of the other suffering comes down, and then it falls onto your own suffering and kind of dissolves it. Out of your concern for other suffering, good comes, And so by being more interested in other suffering, your kind of obsession with your own pain and my own problems, can lessen a bit, so it can be very beneficial. Yeah, so do it with loved ones. If you don't want to take on the sufferings of the whole world because they're so horrific, or wars in where it's kind of obviously horrendous suffering, you do it at a level that's comfortable for you. Yeah, so be creative, I'm saying, really.
Thank you.
Maybe we could do it again next week, and obviously try different ways, or get used to it, or maybe we'll do something else. I don't know. We'll see. But it doesn't have to be meditation. And like when you're dealing in a different situation, like a situation where you're dealing with a difficult employee or, you know, a difficult boss or something at work, if you've got time to think clearly, you know, you can take in the other person's suffering because they're very angry or they're very disappointed or, you know, whatever they're giving you, sharing their difficult emotions, and you know, they're angry at you or whatever, you know, they're just sort of sorrowful or whatever, you know, they're taking up a lot of your, you know, kind of whatever it is, and then you take on their suffering and mentally, you know, let it smash your self-charity. So at that point you might find, you know, you're a bit more able to deal with that difficult person because you've really focused the why are you getting irritated, why are you getting on the defensive, why are you getting uptight. You know, your self-cherishing is getting in the way of a more kind of, you know, kind response or a more fair response, or a response that doesn't get you excited and angry and uptight. So you don't have, it doesn't have to be in meditation. It can be in, you know, just in daily life. Okay, well that's taken us up to 9 o'clock, so time to stop there. Thank you for joining, and see you again in a fortnight's time. In a fortnight's time, I may be in Prague. I've got some teachings in Czechia coming up, but hopefully I'll be able to tune in from the hotel bedroom where the Wi-Fi is okay. And so see you then in a fortnight's time. Okay.
Geshe.
Thank you.
Madam.
See you soon. Bye.